well-wisher, homage to the Blessed One, the Perfect One, the Supremely Enlightened One. How old was Prince Siddhartha when he attained enlightenment? Answer: 35 years old. Who were the first lay followers to take refuge in the Buddha? Answer: Tabassu and Ballika. Controlling the minds. When a person achieves mastery over his her minds, then such a person can attain greatness and highest welfare, Nibanna. Mind has the great power to transform our lives and bring about lasting happiness and freedom. Happiness and the capacity to control the minds are interconnected. They are interdependent. You cannot separate the two. To the extent a person develops control over his mind, he can enjoy happiness. It is happiness that everybody seeks. There is not a single being in the whole universe that does not seek happiness. There are things that give you just momentary happiness by gaining something and through it satisfying your ego, satisfying your greed, satisfying your militancy and aggressiveness. You get what you think is happiness. It is very but this sensual gratifications is not true. Lasting happiness, it is very short lived and has no real meanings whatsoever and soon turn into dissatisfaction. The Buddha taught that there is dukkha, great misery, unhappiness, unsatisfactoriness, pain, suffering, and so on, and that there is also a way to overcome all of this. One can make an end to suffering, putting an end to suffering is the goal of the Dhamma. Suffering at the bodily level, suffering at the mental level, suffering at the social level, suffering at the moral or ethical level, at the philosophical level, and the and at the spiritual level. There are all kinds of suffering and therefore all kinds of happiness to exist. Happiness starts with inner calmness. Calm mind is a peaceful mind, a mind that is free from all kinds of mental disturbance and mental impurity. These kinds of happiness, this lasting happiness is the happiness that is truly uh, worthwhile. In contrast, a form of happiness that is just momentary has very little meaning. Only a controlled mind leads to happiness. So, happiness and self control are closely related. To the extent we are able to control our minds, our feelings, our desires, our ambitions, and do not let them affect our peacefulness by letting them go to happy here and now. The Dhammapada says, happy indeed we live friendly amidst the hostile amidst hostile means we dwell free from hatred while living with hostile people. It is indeed possible to live free from hostility, from negative feelings troubling us if we have control over our minds. To the extent we have control over our minds, we are free from anger, hatred, and hostility, factor that lead to unhappiness in the world. Happiness is directly related to how much freedom you enjoy from anger, from antipathy, from prejudice, from hatred, and from enmity, from excessive craving. Thanks of the state of the world today, how much unhappiness everywhere because of hatred, 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 and hatred. Uh, everywhere hatred, hatred in the names of religions, in the names of politics, in the names of this and that. How foolish human beings can be. Your anger, hatred, and antipathy can be overcome just by developing self control. Once chain meant one self controlled person who can control his anger and ill wills and emotions is enough to bring happiness to hundreds and thousands of people. One angry man, one hateful prejudice man can inject a lot of hatred in others and bring about immense unhappiness and suffering. The Dhammapada says, uh, happy indeed we live unaffected amidst the affected by craving. Amidst affected man we dwell free from afflictions. The craving indicated in these lines is not merely craving for worldly pleasures of all kinds, which is derived throughout the chants. The worst form of craving is that which egotism brings about, which the self-serving tendency brings about. Then there is another form of craving which goes together with it. This is ego born craving, the craving to exist in the world, bhava, tanha, and its opposite, the craving to destroy oneself because of wrong view that by such destructions one will get happiness. All these forms of craving are a source of suffering, and this continues on and on, over and over again, because we lack control over our craving each time a thought of craving arises. We eat craving for good food, craving for good clothes, craving for name, craving for the fulfillments of ambitions, and so on. The only place the craving does not arise is in relation to the longing for freedom from samsaric suffering. You cannot crave in this sense for freedom from samsara because this freedom is the very opposite of cravings. You can only aspire to be free. You can aspire to be free from samsara, but that is not craving. In fact, it is the very opposite of it. This is because when you seek freedom from samsara, then you are actually aiming to go beyond all the objects, physical and mental, and thus there is nothing to crave or desire. So, one way of being happy is by having so much control over ourselves, our minds, that we don't allow any craving whatsoever to enter our minds. This includes craving for worldly pleasure, of all kinds for positions, all things that we crave are for self satisfactions of some kinds, and this even includes religious practice that people resort to in order to have their craving meet. Craving in any form deprives us of the true happiness we seek, as it creates instance restlessness and heaviness in our heart. Freedoms and happiness are very different from it, and lightness in our minds as happiness that is everlasting, stable. Happiness, that sort of happiness is very different from ordinarily take to be happiness, which is illusory, unstable, born out of attachment and sensual stimulations. True happiness and dukkha nirodha, the destructions of dukkha, occur at the same time. They are simultaneous factors. To the extent we can control ourselves, we can enjoy happiness, which also means freedom from craving, freedom from afflictions. Here is another gatha from the Dhammapada that is more or less similar in its message. Happy indeed we live free from avarice and anxiety amidst those who are avaricious. Amidst avaricious men, we dwell free from avarice, the freedom that this particular gatha refers to is freedom from avarice, greed of any kinds. Avarice brings about anxiety for the fulfillment of something we covet. This is our intensely seeking this or that, our endless seeking. These kinds of seeking is symptomatic of avarice of some kinds. There can also be avarice for self satisfaction, which brings about a lot of anxiety, as people are always afraid that they may not get the object they desire. So, anxiety and avarice go together. A person who is freed from anxiety because he does not have avarice enjoys the real happiness that can come about only if one has a measure of control over one's mind. It is in the mind that avarice lies, anxiety lies, craving lies, affliction lies. All these factors deprive us from enjoying happiness here and now and in the future as well. All these factors reside in the minds, so ultimately the whole thing goes back to one point: having control over the minds, having control over the way the minds grab and desire, and having the wish ability to let these things go. So control over the minds and happiness are inseparable factors. The gathas from the Dhammapada which we have prepared to hear show us how we can remain free from negativity while living among others who are full of it. We have to live in this world. And living in this world means being surrounded by people who harbor a lot of hatred, who harbor a lot of avarice or greed or craving factor that defile the minds and bring about an imbalance within. So even as we live in this world surrounded by people who are full of avarice, hostility, and anger and all other kinds of evils, we have to cultivate our minds in such a way as not to be affected by the world, not to be affected by all the defiling factors of the world, by all the temptations of the world, to be free uh, from them requires therefore a measure of self-control. In this way, one can live happily among those who are very angry or unhappy or greedy, very anxious, very hateful, or very deluded people, people with all kinds of distorted thinking. It is in this way that while living amongst them one remains sane, full of understanding, full of wisdom. This is possible only when we have developed our minds through the practice of Dhamma. If somebody want to know what the Dhamma is, you could say that it is nothing but the science of the minds. Every word of the Buddha somehow or the other inclines toward the minds and relates to how we can overcome all the weaknesses of the minds and develop the tremendous potentials of very vicious wealth that is within it. Mind is a source of bondage, trouble, worry, and suffering. yet it can also be a source of happiness, freedom, and joy. So much of love and compassion comes or can come from the mind's having understood this. We can proceed to apply the Buddha's teachings in our day-to-day lives, beings free from all prejudice, uh, preju- we should apply this teaching as a science of the mind, as knowledge that enables the mind to be free from greed and hatred, free in the sense that the mind is now able to mm, nurture and develop all its potential wealth. We proceed with the perceptions that everything is within the mind. Once we set our mind right, we will have no quarrel with the world. We can still be in the world and yet be out of it, about it. Knowledge of the spiritual path frees the minds and enables one to control the mind. This is the knowledge we seek, and the Buddha advises to get this knowledge. There is no other way but to cultivate sila or virtue. So, to develop happiness and control over the mind, you must cultivate virtue. The world suffers because of hostility, prejudice, hate, and dislikes, which come from too much of ambitions and self centeredness. Worldly knowledge obtained enhance greed and selfishness as the very pursuit of it is rooted in a desire for worldly gains. True knowledge must make us uh, humbler and happier too, and more reverential toward goodness, toward virtue, towards wisdom. Cultivate an attitude of reverence toward everybody, towards yourself. To begins with a person uh, without self-respect is a zero person, a person of no virtue, a person with no happiness. Happiness requires humility, and humility led to control over minds. Humility comes from a reverential approach toward something that is great. The moment we say, I have done this good deed, very good, I learn and practice the teaching of the Master. May this deed become a flower at the feet of the Buddha. And if we proceed with this humility and reverence, we become truly wise, and to that extent happy and in greater control over our minds. Also, this type of attitude keeps us grounded and help us to develop true faith in the Triple Gem. Thank you, all my friends, well wisher. Thank you. Sabe Sata, Sugita Hontu, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Bhavatu sabba mangala rakantu sabba devata. Sabba buddha nuwavina sadasati bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata. Sabba dhamma nuwavina sadasati bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata. Sabba sangha nuwavina sadasati bhavantu te. Etena cacca vajjina cutiti hotu sabbada. Etena cacca vajjina cabba dukkha cabba boyo. Sabba ruga sabba antarayo sabba upadava durnimitang vinaccantu. Itina caca bajina hotu te jaya monggolanti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sabe Sata Sugita Hontu. Good. Thank you.